Welcome back to another episode of That's Business. Today's guest, Alex Bartell, is the managing director of Cinch IT Michigan, where he leads business growth and strategic development. With an MBA from Walsh College and over a decade of experience spanning manufacturing, business services, software, higher ed, and IT, Alex lives for optimizing operations and driving revenue. In addition to his role at Cinch, he is a senior partner of Consortium Business Ventures, a small-scale independent acquisition group focused on acquiring and modernizing small businesses. Passionate about networking and innovation, Alex is dedicated to helping local businesses scale efficiently while fostering a strong professional relationship. His leadership and impact were recently recognized with the 2025 Leadership Oakland Young Professional Award nomination as part of the Troy Chamber of Commerce's Business Excellence Awards. Alex, you're just kind of impressive here with all these awards you got going on. So thanks for being on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Angela, thank you very much for that wonderful intro. I could tell you wrote it yourself.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. Alex totally wrote it, but it's fine. Funny, talking about networking before we dive into this, but Alex and I met, it's got to be like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes.
Connected on LinkedIn. And this again, which we'll dive into networking and why it's so important to add people on LinkedIn or keep them in mind. Because Alex was always on my list to reach out to. I have this never-ending list of people for the podcast, but until I put it out there like, hey, I'm looking for people, and Alex reached out. So happy to rekindle our friendship that was briefly started 4 years ago. Let's throw it back first. Growing up, did you know you want to be in IT, or what did you want to be when you wanted to grow up, so to say?
Oh my gosh, throwing it all the way back. I did not know that I was going to be in IT or that I wanted to be in IT, honestly, Angela. So taking it all the way back, I am first-gen American. And when my parents came here, they were like, hey, we have one objective for you, and it's to have the best American life possible. So no restrictions. Don't feel like you have to host and own our culture only. Like, please embrace where we are. So I grew up in a predominantly black and white neighborhood. We were all poor. I grew up at 8 and Gratiot in South Warren. So when I grew up, it was very much just acclimating and absorbing everything around me, but also really trying to respect what my family has done and gotten here. So it was kind of like new waters all the way around. There was like no history to stand on. So when I graduated high school, thankfully from my parents and my grandparents, they were not pushing me in the typical millennial style at the time, where it was just go to college and do it because. They were like, no, if you go to school, what's going to happen? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, well, then probably don't do that. So I went right to work, and it started from a summer job where a buddy of mine from soccer was like, hey, man, do you want to stop working at Kmart and make some real money? And at the time, real money was like, I don't know, $15 an hour, like busting your ass at a steel shop. But I was like, yeah, why not? What do I have to lose? I was putzing around at a community college. But yeah, so I started working at the steel shop, and I didn't think I was going to work there for more than the summer. And then 6 years later, I'm selling parts to US Gov. I was doing that for like 3 years, 3 out of the 6, but selling helicopter components to US Gov. And at that 6-year run, I was like, whoa, I didn't plan for this at all. Like, it just happened. Like, one thing led to another. I started in a shop. I was like doing the next thing in there, like in final inspection. Like, I'm going to say some things that some people out there are going to be like, what is that? But essentially working with metals. And then I was cool enough to sell parts to US Gov. Things kind of got stressful. And then here we go down the windy road of life. I stayed in manufacturing, moved from metals to plastics. I know you and I talked about this, but for our listeners, this is what I always say, like, because people are always fascinated with like, whoa, how did you go from manufacturing to IT? And I'm like, it's not a straight path, I promise. So I go, Angela, you're familiar with the NFL, right? And then usually Angela either goes, yes, or she goes sarcastically, no, you asshole. And then, and then I go, yeah. So with like the NFL or the NBA or MLS, pick any major sports. I worked for a company called Stalls, where we manufacture the letters and numbers that go on those jerseys. So when, and Angela, correct me, is it Buccellato?
Yes, Buccellato. Very good.
Buccellato. Okay, so when we draft Angela Buccellato, number 1 in the 2025 NFL draft, the names and numbers on the back of that jersey, that's me. So I worked with a chemistry team to make that happen. So working between the NFL saying, Alex, we need this more stretchy or we need this more durable. I would turn around to a team of chemists from a few different countries and say, hey, guys, this is what we need to do. And they would go, okay, with what budget and what time? And then my job was to just balance that and make it work for companies like the NFL, Nike, Supreme, Off-White, just to name some big people that people might know. But yeah, I did that all with a high school education. And I think Dan Campbell would say that was probably something grit related, but I never try to quote that. But yeah, so I did that with a high school education. And then when I was like, wow, I really fell into manufacturing. Yeah, I tried to apply for other roles and I got so many doors slammed in my face about not having traditional education that I was like, all right, let's see what this is about. And it was just before COVID when I started really looking into that. And I was choosing between Wayne, Walsh, and U of M. And I selected Walsh truthfully out of speed because they do 4 semesters a year versus trimesters. So I was a little bit on a vendetta to get these degrees, or at the time it was only supposed to be an undergrad. And yeah, I did my undergrad and master's MBA in a year and change.
Oh, Lord.
It was a vicious process, but like everything, I tried to be adaptable and make the most of it. I was really sad because I wanted to go in person to these classes, but COVID, and that didn't stop me. I was like pinging everybody in my class, honestly, somewhat probably annoying, like, yo, we're gonna meet. And so I was setting up these one-on-ones because I'm like, I'm going to meet my fellow students. I'm going to meet my professors. I'm going to meet staff members. Like, I'm making the most of this experience. I'm about to drop 30 grand. This is what I'm going to get from it. So yeah, after that, I walked out with my MBA and I was like, great, what do I do now? I feel this new glow, but where's all the money? And at the time, there was like that big, well, I shouldn't say there was a tech boom. I mean, there is and was a tech boom. And so I was like, let's see what that's about. So I started looking at roles in tech, and a lot of companies were like, dude, you have 10 years of manufacturing, you've ripped through higher ed. What do you want to do in tech? And I was like, anything I can get my hands on. And they took my project management skills, and a company in Cleveland was like, yo, we'll pick you up. So they hired me, and a month in, they were like, oh shit, here's a promotion because apparently you guys do things different in manufacturing and you guys get some shit done. And so that was great until it wasn't. They eventually got bought out. I didn't love how that was going, and I elected to leave, and it was great. I went on a 5-month vacation and tried to reflect on what I wanted because I fell into manufacturing. Then I started chasing a degree, and then now I'm in software. Now what do I do? And then I'm on a hike in the UP, and the president of Walsh College, Susie, calls me and says, yo, Alex, I see that your LinkedIn is saying you're available. Is that true? Yeah. What's up, Susie? And she tells me that she wants to hire me for a role. And without going into too many details, I say no twice.
Twice?
Mostly because I was like, I don't know anything about higher ed, Susie. Like, what do you want me to do there? And honestly, she, I think, addressed it to me that there's a lot of skills that you're going to bring to the table that I think we need in higher ed to look at things from a different angle. So I respected that by the 3rd time. And it also helped that Susie was like, yo, just get in here. We'll figure it out. So I was like, all right, sounds good. And I got to sort of pick my role as the director of alumni engagement. That kind of like blew things up for me from a networking perspective to really look at our alumni database and get alumni together. But yeah, I think after a year, I was sucked back into the software world where I was offered a ridiculous contract that I could not say no to. I made my annual salary plus half in 5 weeks.
5 weeks. Weeks, not months, weeks. Whew.
5 weeks,
okay.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The initial contract was to help with the software implementation over what I quoted for 3 months. And there was a bonus clause built in there that if I got it done sooner, they would put half on top of it. So I had a 3-month runway. We were aiming for 2, and I did it in 5 weeks. So admittedly, it was far easier than I initially projected. My friend that may hear this, please know that I did work very hard, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. It was money well spent, I promise. Everybody was happy.
Well, and that's so interesting because with contracts, a lot of people, I feel, don't realize like how much money there is to be made in the contract world or on a per project basis because it is scary. I mean, and depending on how old you were, like a lot of people feel about insurance, but I'll wipe that away with my hundreds. I don't care. You can afford marketplace insurance when you're making that kind of money. So
Yeah,
that's great. I mean, so much money.
for sure. And I mean, like at the time, absolutely, I agree that I think we all get tied down somewhat with golden handcuffs, like with, investing and healthcare. And at some point, you have to say what's right for me. And I promise it wasn't just a gigantic number where it was like, oh, yeah, I don't have to weigh anything out. It definitely felt that way. But, thankful for family and friends that were like, okay, let's actually wear this out.
Okay, so we finished the contract. We're wiping our sweat away with those hundreds. So what do we do next?
Yes. So very similar to the situation with Walsh, someone that I met a year prior at a networking event, shout out my partner, Josh. I met him at an Entrepreneurs Organization Detroit event a year ago. I was literally just doing my thing, bopping around. And he was like, on the spot, he was like, I need to hire you. And at the time, I was just starting with Walsh. So I was like, sorry, no. I'm in a happy relationship, flash the ring kind of situation. But yeah, we stayed in touch and it was great. But yeah, a year later, after I finished that contract, he saw my LinkedIn update and he was like, yo, dude, do I see you're on the market? And I'm like, yeah, let's talk. So we literally go out, we get a few beers and start talking. And initially he tried to hire me as a sales guy. And I was like, no, that's not really my fit, but happy to take a look at your business plan and kind of get a feel for what's going on. And so Josh had the IT stuff locked down. He's been at it for I think over 2 years. He's really good with IT, but he's finally accepted. And I know he lets me say this, but he's like, yeah, I suck at business. And so then he was like, well, if you don't want to be a sales guy, and then I was kind of pointing out on the map that hey, you need a partner. And I wasn't trying to point at myself, but he was like, would you want to take that on? And like any logical person, I asked, well, how much do you have? And he was like, okay, let's back it up. So we came to eventual terms of how we're going to work together because Josh wanted me for a longer term commitment, but after coming off that huge contract, I was like, well, I can't just work with you. I need you to be okay with the fact that lightning might strike again, and I want to accept that. So yeah, we went on a 90-day trial where he hired me as a consultant, and I was just kind of doing some business stuff for him on the side, essentially building out his sales structure, his CRM, that sort of thing, while also consulting clients for IT infrastructure. Apparently, I knew more than I thought I did. And we went on a 90-day run. The dating went well. And he was like, perfect. Okay, I feel good. You can obviously do what I'm asking for and whatever else in the background. And I don't need to know about it. So now I'm the managing director.
What a freaking story. Oh my God. That is incredible. Now, backtracking a little bit, you keep saying, found me on LinkedIn, saw my LinkedIn update. When did you come to the point where you're like, maybe I should put some love on LinkedIn? Was it forced to you at Walsh, or at what point did you kind of decide let's just figure this whole freaking LinkedIn bullshit out?
Honestly, it's been an ongoing story for me. So in manufacturing where I was, networking wasn't a thing. You were literally limited to the people you work with. And that was honestly driving me stir crazy. But thankfully, I had peers that were my age that were constantly talking about LinkedIn. And they were like, just work on it. It's like a live, ongoing resume. And at the time, young me, I was like, that's stupid. Who cares? But then, as I would pick away at it, I'm like, wow, I'm actually meeting and learning about different industries and people just being present on LinkedIn. And it really ramped up over time because the more people I met, the more I learned about different industries. And then I started to see the value of taking advantage of that live resume on LinkedIn.
You do post, but you're not someone that's every day, every second, live, breathe, eat LinkedIn. I should be, even though I'm not myself. But what have been kind of your tactics with LinkedIn, and how has that kind of supported you in the opportunities you've had thus far in your career?
Wow, that is a really good question. I try to be very authentic on LinkedIn as I am in real life, meaning that I don't try to post too much. I try to actually catch myself recognizing what I do, because I think that's something I still struggle with, is acknowledging that I did something cool. It definitely feels weird. And I know there's plenty of people that I've met literally in the past 2 months alone explaining that it's okay to say you did something cool because you don't want to feel braggy. And I feel it all the time. Like, I don't want to feel that way. But in reality, yes, I'm doing cool shit and I would like to acknowledge it for myself. And it's not when I post or like when I put something on LinkedIn, it's honestly more for my own like record that like, okay, I did it. And then more so than please engage like this. It's literally for me to remember that I'm doing cool stuff.
That's so right, too, because I don't remember where I heard this. I don't know if this was therapy or wherever I heard this, but it was like, Josh is your business partner's name, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say Josh came to you with the same, oh, I don't want to brag about myself. What would you tell him? You'd tell him, oh, man, come on. You're awesome. Like, you should post it. So
yeah,
it's like if you look at your own negative self-thought as your best friend, your partner, business partner, life partner, whoever, friend, family member, whatever, it's like, oh, you do realize how much that negative self-talk kind of gets to you. So
right.
It is crazy, but and it's interesting too, because even with my own LinkedIn experiences, you don't think people are watching, but they are watching. So they may not like engage with your content. They may not message you. I don't sit through the list of like who engaged with this post here and what did well. But even people that I haven't, like I hadn't talked to you in 3-4 years before we started this conversation a few weeks ago. But it's so interesting because so many people actually do give a shit and like wish the best for you. And I mean, come on, the president of Walsh College offering you a job, like that's some cool credibility. Like that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about your relationship building because you obviously kick ass at this, but have you always been like this outgoing person or like a big networker? I know we were briefly talking about that before we started recording, but has this always been something that's been a part of who you are?
Yes, I would say so. So, and it's so funny that like I try not to use the word networking just because like I don't know if it just historically has like this weird, like that weird professional tone, like business to business, like ew, no. I always like, and I literally have had this conversation like 5 times in the last 2 weeks, like, and I love doing it because acknowledging that networking is honestly kind of unnatural makes it that much easier to actually do. And what I try to do is help people, my girlfriend included, like I help her reframe that it's like, when I'm out there, like if you like the way how I handle myself out there, it's literally because I just want to find people that I align with in the sense of being nice, like trying to be helpful and like getting shit done. And if you hit those boxes, which I feel like are not hard ones to hit, then cool, we can get along. And you can sniff out from a mile away those slime balls that are like, yo, tit for tat, like you better give me some business. It's like, nah, we're good.
What can you do for me?
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of relationship building, I do think from that specific element has always been with me. Like it mostly came from sports. So growing up, like I always liked meeting new people and sports was a great way to do that for me. And it wasn't like the primary objective, but I definitely saw the value because if I was in any social event, I felt really confident to just be like, hey, how's it going? And then just acknowledge that this is kind of weird that we don't know anybody. Let's talk. And just literally go from there.
I agree because that's where my boyfriend says he loves how much I talk for the both of us. So he doesn't have to do the small talk because I'm really good at it. So adding that to my resume. But it is awkward. And that's what I try to stress to people too, is it's like, as extroverted as I am, I don't like walking into a room where I don't know anyone, or I like to call it my safe person. So like the person that maybe invited me to the event, like if my safe person isn't there and I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like I'm a child waiting for their parent, even though, grown ass woman can handle my own, but it's different and it is different and it doesn't get any less awkward. And I think it's just like a first date.
Yeah,
it's just as awkward, just as like, oh God, is this going to be worth my time? Is this going to be a good match? And that's, I think, with any type of networking, or I like to say building connections is my little zhuzh on it. But it's so true because they don't get any less awkward ever.
They don't. It's like, I think that's like the first thing like I try to share with anybody is that just acknowledge that it's weird. We're all there likely for the same reason at a networking event that we signed up for and then blocked time out for, that we want to meet people. And it is weird. And then the second we can go over that hurdle, it gets so much easier.
Oh my God, it so does. Absolutely. So fast forwarding to You win this award, which congratulations. I didn't even congratulate you on that. That's incredible. Now with the business, I mean, as the managing director, which I know is a newer promotion, which congratulations. So
Thank you.
what does your business do? I want to talk about that. What clients are we working with? Like, what is this beautiful business of yours?
Ultimately, what Cinch IT is, we are a business-to-business, B2B IT service provider. So if a company needs IT services, that's us. And there's actually quite a few of us around this area, but where we really stand out, it comes down to service and compliance. So for service, for example, a huge thing in IT is speed. So when resume rescue goes down, how fast can your IT company help you and get you back up? An average good response time is 4 hours. So when Angela submits a ticket, 4 hours is, quote, an average good. And just to put it into context, like working with some manufacturers, they actually make a lot of our current business. When I ask them that question, like, hey, what's a good fast response time for you? They're like, I don't know, a couple days, 4 days. And I'm like, what? How much money are you losing in that time? But anyway, that's just to put it into scale. And for us, our average response time for a ticket is 11 minutes.
Wow.
For the past 3 years trending. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's incredible. So when you're talking about helping businesses, are we in certain industries, or what are some of the obvious, emails down, whatever isn't happening, websites just showing errors, but what are some of these more common problems, and what industries do you help clients with?
A lot of the industries that right now we're very focused on, or I should just say that make up what we do, we're about 60% manufacturing, 25% small healthcare, and the remaining percentage is, quote, other. And other is mostly comprised of like business services. So like legal offices, financial firms, things of that nature. But now that I'm the managing director, I'm actually trying to blow up that other percent, because I find it hard to believe in Southeast Michigan that there aren't more business services that need that help.
That's awesome. Now, what are you focused on kind of, I don't want to say new goals for the year, but I'm going to. What are we kind of most excited for in 2025?
Oh my gosh, there are so many things to be excited for. For Cinch specifically, or just in general?
Either, both. Let's do both.
Well, you know what? Let's just go down the list, because I do want to acknowledge Cinch. I want to acknowledge Consortium Business Ventures, and then Alex. And it feels weird, and I'm sure you feel this, Angela, like having to pull the different hats off.
Yes.
Yeah. There's Angela, Resume Rescue, like being an awesome person.
Thank you. Yes. No,
Yeah.
It is. It's a lot. And it's interesting because I'm sure you can relate to this, but I was just actually telling my therapist this. I'm like, I just can't, the business owner hat is like always on. And even in, out at my friend's birthday party, and her parents, who I've known forever, want to talk about their careers and how they want to leave. So the entrepreneur hat that I took off has to go back on. And I'm like, I just don't want to talk about careers right now. But it's funny because I love it, but I also am like, not every second of my life. So sorry to cut you off, but I totally agree.
No, you're good. I think you acknowledged a really solid topic there, and not to go too far off, but the hat fatigue is real.
It is. Okay, so our list of goals.
For Cinch, or Alex had on managing director for Cinch. One thing we're really excited about is building out our social footprint. So that kind of ties into me being present at some of these networking groups between some local chambers and some other smaller groups. But that directly ties into our larger goal that, a lot of business folks like to hear is like, well, what revenue targets, or, how many users do you plan to onboard this year? So our goal this year for us is pretty ambitious. It's a big goal, bringing on 600 new users. So that's like individual like computer users. For us, that's big, at least for the revenue target that we're trying to hit. So really exciting there.
Awesome.
And then for Consortium Business Ventures, we're really just getting started. Shout out to my partners, Kim and Paul. They're wonderful people, also Walsh College alum. So we're targeting a few different types of businesses, and we're looking at our first acquisition probably in the next month or so. And honestly, Angela, like Kim and Paul probably don't see it often, but I say it all the time. Like, I'm nervous. Like, it's a scary thing to say, I'm going to buy a business for $5 million. Do I have $5 million? No. But am I learning about structured debt and all these crazy financial terms of like what it means to buy something, and then like try to break it down into Shark Tank language? EBITDA.
Yes.
So yeah, like that's very exciting and it's very new. And I think nervous for me is good because it feels like growth.
Oh, that's awesome. Super exciting.
Yeah. And then the last thing for Alex, honestly, is balancing Cinch, Consortium, trying to keep them within their respective time constraints and really respecting my own balance. Like I had it really solid, like through COVID, post COVID, and then just kind of like coming off of Walsh and then going into the contract, like things went into a little bit of a loop, but we're getting there.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, you're incredible. So as we wrap this up, what advice do you have for listeners?
Oh my gosh. Definitely subscribe to Angela's stuff. Like she is the truth. I'm going to start there. Genuinely. Like
I swear to tell him to say that. I swear.
She did. Like I know this is audio, so you guys aren't seeing the money. She's like waving in the background. No, but genuinely, like I've been following Angela's journey with the resume rescue, and it's something that like I've thought for a long time, like why doesn't that exist? And Angela's literally bring it to life. And there are so many cool resources out there, but I think Angela and her team do a great job consolidating that for very digestible formats. And I literally think of different stages of my professional career where I could have used this or that. And please just start there. I mean, you're probably listening to this for that reason or something similar. Like if you think I'm cool at what I'm doing right now, I've probably used very similar elements to what Angela's out there pushing. So please do that.
Making my day over here. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other words of wisdom outside of Angela?
Be nice. I think that's probably like a good one. Like, and I know that sounds simple to a lot of people, but for others, I know it's not always as easy. So try
and be nice. I like that. Alex, I knew you'd be an awesome guest. And of course, you were an awesome guest. So thank you so much. If you're listening to this and you want to follow Alex's journey, work with himself and his team at Cinch, head to the show notes and tune in again next week for another episode of That's Business.